Your current approach to getting stronger is not working. You probably do a lot of straight sets at the moment, like you do a 5x5 or 3 sets of 3 or something like that. Or maybe you do a type of periodization where you do a block of eights, a block of fives, then triples. But when it comes time to test your 1 rep max, everything feels really heavy and you don't end up setting any PRs. That's because your training program is not set up to optimize strength gains. In this video, I'm going to share with you the exact top set back off approach that I use to get to a 247.5 kilo squat, 160 kilo bench press, 300 kilo deadlift, and it's helped hundreds of my clients to do exactly the same. Then at the end of the video, I'll literally give you some specific examples that you can go and add in to your own training program to improve things and get stronger more quickly. And if you want me to literally just do it for you, top link in the description, you can hire me as your coach and I'll write your training program for you. So let's get straight into it. Your current approach to getting stronger. So like I mentioned briefly in the introduction, you probably do a lot of straight sets. And what I mean by straight sets is you're doing like a fixed set and rep scheme. So like 5 sets of 5, 3 sets of 3, something like that. And when you're a beginner and you can add weight to the bar every single session, every set, sure, this approach is okay. But you know from now, from your experience, you cannot just keep adding weight to the bar every single week to every set. It's just not possible. And that's why you're getting to the point where you're grinding loads of reps, you're hitting failure on reps. Like you can't complete your 5x5 and you have to like reset and step backwards. It's just not possible. It doesn't match up with how physiology works to get stronger. So those straight sets, they're just not conducive to strength gains. And I'll explain in the next slide why. But following that approach is really, really holding you back. Especially this second approach here as well. So where you do this type of periodization where you'll do a block of eights, then fives, then you'll do threes. And a lot of guys will say, oh, like the eights are for volume, for hypertrophy, and then the fives are a bit more specific to strength, threes are even more specific. The problem is this approach means you are not training your 1 rep max strength for a bulk of the training year. Like when you're doing these eights, you're not training your 1 rep max. When you're doing fives, you're not training your 1 rep max. Strength is extremely specific to a given intensity, rep range. So when you are doing eights, you are not training the qualities directly that influence 1 rep max strength. You need to have some kind of top set in there or some kind of exposure to heavy weight on the bar if you want to get stronger. A 1 rep max is a skill. You need to practice it frequently. It would be like Usain Bolt trying to improve his 100-meter sprint time and all of his training is marathon or very long distance running. Of course, he still keeps in some sprints for specificity and to get better at what he wants to improve. So like I said here, no regular exposure to heavy top sets. You're not doing enough top sets on the main lifts. There's not enough practice at what you want to improve. You want to improve your 1 rep max, but then the bulk of your training is eights, fives, triples, stuff like that. And that's not to say those rep ranges aren't important, but you still need that element of skill practice in there with the heavy top sets. And then one of the biggest problems is your volume work is way too heavy. You're doing a 5x5 at like 80%, failing reps, grinding all the time. You're really beat up and it limits how much training you can do. If you were to scale that intensity down a bit, you'd be able to get more volume in. It would be more specific to your goals and you would have better fatigue management. I'll explain how to do that. So what is actually important for strength? So if you want to get really, really strong, there are a few different things that you need to consider in your training program, okay? The first one, like I mentioned, is regular exposure to heavy top sets. A 1 rep max is a skill. Strength is very specific to a given skill. We have tons of research showing that higher intensities produce more strength adaptations, okay? When we do the correct dose of them. And what I mean by that is we need to be doing regular top sets, and I recommend that you keep in some kind of top set for the whole year. Now, if you're wondering what even a top set is, it basically just means the heaviest set for the day. So you might go in, warm up, and you get up to like a really heavy set of 1, 2, or 3 reps. That would be your top set, okay? The heaviest set of the day. It's very specific to a 1 rep max. You get to practice strength at low velocity, meaning the bar is moving a bit more slowly. And even just for confidence as well, to have a heavy weight on your back, it will help you to develop strength specific to a 1 rep max. Now, another important thing is opportunities for skill acquisition. So I've spoke about frequency a lot of times. Now, if you are doing this approach you're currently doing, where you're doing loads of really hard straight sets, you can't practice the main lifts often enough to get really good at them. And you definitely won't be able to do heavy top sets frequently enough. A lot of guys don't realize, but training to failure and training really, really hard reps comes with a lot of muscle damage And it also has negative influences on your coordination and technique. If you are regularly training to failure, we have research showing that your technique will degrade, your coordination will be worse in subsequent sessions, meaning that you will just be practicing bad reps over and over again. We don't want to be doing really hard sets all of the time. Another important consideration for strength is high force production volume work. So a lot of you guys think when you're doing your fives, they're really hard, you're really grinding, you think that's really good for strength. You think that fifth rep where the bar speed is super slow was really great for strength gains. It's not, it's the complete opposite. And I would argue the earlier reps in the set were the more productive for strength because you are producing more force. A 1 rep max is a measure of force production. Force is mass times acceleration. Mass meaning obviously the load on the bar. The acceleration is the velocity component at which you're moving the bar. So you need to be moving that bar quickly on your volume work. If not, you are producing less force and it's less specific to your 1 rep max. Not to mention that when there is more weight on the bar, it comes with more fatigue as well, meaning that you can't train as productively for as long or as frequently. So it's just a lose-lose. So this relates obviously to fatigue management because you're always playing a game in your program, kind of a balancing act between stimulus and fatigue. And I've mentioned this a few times before, but every single time you train, there are two outputs to each of your training sessions. You have stimulus and you have fatigue. Now, if you want to get really, really strong long term, you need stimulus to be quite high and you need fatigue to be down here trailing behind. If you have this scenario that most of you guys have right now where you've got really high stimulus because you train really hard, but then your fatigue is even higher, it will always mask that stimulus or that fitness. So you can never actually demonstrate your strength, put more weight on the bar and get stronger. Now, the final important part is you need space or energy for bodybuilding accessories. If you want to get strong long term, one of the things we have the most control over is the size of your muscles. If you are doing your strength training so hard that you can't do much bodybuilding, so for example, you're doing Texas method, you're wiped out at the end of your training sessions and you can't do any bodybuilding, you are limiting yourself, giving yourself a bottleneck because you can't grow muscle to get bigger and stronger long term because you just don't have the energy to do your bodybuilding. You probably skip it because you're so smoked at the end of your training session, or you just do a lazy 3x10 on bicep curls and call it a day. So your strength training needs to be sub-maximal enough that you can really focus on just getting as jacked as possible, okay? Now, what are top sets and how do we actually program these in? So top sets, like I said, they are highly specific to a 1 rep max. They give you opportunity to have heavy weight on the bar at high peak intensity, low velocity force production. It's very specific to doing a 1 rep max. A great example is doing a single at an RPE 8, which is around 92-93% of a 1 rep max. Now, the reason we would do that is because a single RPE 8, meaning you have 2 reps left in reserve, so it's basically a weight that you could do for a triple, you just do it once. Now, that is heavy enough that it gives you some great skill practice at 1 rep max. It's low velocity force production, it's a heavy weight on the bar, it builds confidence, but it's not so heavy that it comes with a ton of fatigue like a 1 rep max would. So that is a great example of a heavy top set. Like I said, low velocity strength production. It also functions as a benchmark for performance potential and progress. What I mean by that is if we do a single RPE 8 on week 1 and it's 405, and then the next week it's 415, then it's 425, that tells us very reliably that our strength is improving and our program is working because the effort level is staying the same, but the weight on the bar is going up. It also tells us how well we are performing on that given day. So if I go in and on one day I can do 405 for a single at 8, the next day I can only do 365 for a single at 8, it tells me it's probably not a great day and I need to scale down the intensity of my volume work accordingly, because otherwise you're just going to go in, try to just grit your teeth and just put the weight on the bar anyway, and it's going to come with an excessive dose of fatigue, which we don't need. It's not conducive for your strength gains. We need to match the intensity of your training program with how you are performing on a given day, meaning that if you go in the gym and you've slept great, you feel amazing, feel free to push it harder. But if you go in on poor sleep, dehydrated, you haven't eaten great, pushing against that and trying to just be the guy who just goes really hard anyway, it feels cool, but it will backfire because your body doesn't care. Like, it will just experience the stress that you apply to it and it won't adapt and get stronger. So you need to be adjusting the intensity based on performance of these top sets. Now, these top sets, this is how they might look. So I've just given you a broad example. So usually For the main lifts, the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, the primary competition lifts, I would usually do 1, 2, 3 reps for the top set at around 80 to 85% of a 1 rep max or above. This would be kind of the minimum. So a good example, like I said, a single at RPE 7 or a single at RPE 8, okay? Usually 1 to 3 reps because that's low enough of a rep range that you can get a lot of weight on the bar, get some good skill practice. Not to say you can't go outside of this rep range, but this is just kind of my general default, okay? And it might start at 80% and we might be ending a block at like 92, 93% or maybe even higher. Now, for secondary lifts, so for example, if you're doing like squat twice a week, maybe you're doing a pull squat or something, I would again do a top set. I've kind of broadened out the rep range just because the intensity might be a little bit lower. You don't want to be pushing both lifts really heavy in the same week, otherwise they will bleed into each other. So if on the primary you're doing 1 to 3 reps, on the secondary you might do 1 to 6. Could be even higher, but 1 to 6 is a good range in my opinion. Around 70 to 75% at first, and then it's going to get heavier and heavier. For example, a set of 4 at RPE 6, okay? So you might be doing a single on the primary and a set of 4 on the secondary. Now, these obviously will depend on individual response. You might do better at higher intensities, lower intensities. You're going to need to play around with that as well. For the back off sets, and this is where a lot of guys will completely mess up their program because they think that they just need to force weight on the bar every single week, and I'm going to tell you why that is a mistake. So the purpose of your back off sets, so if the top set is to have some highly specific practice close to 1 rep max, low velocity strength production, to benchmark your performance, to monitor progress, okay, that's the main function of the top sets. The back off sets is just the stress that drives the adaptations. It keeps driving the top sets up. So you can think of it as the top set is a bit of a performance. The back offs are just the dose of stress that are making you stronger so that you can put more weight on the bar for the top sets, okay? Now, these need to be high force production. Like I mentioned, a 1 rep max is a measure of force production. Force equals mass times acceleration. So these need to be high force production, meaning that we need a weight on the bar that we can move quickly, and we want there to be probably 5 to 10 reps in reserve, maybe even more for the bulk of your training. And that might sound crazy to you, but like I said, it's not a case of harder training equals better training. It's a case of, can you recover from this training? Can you balance that stimulus and fatigue in your favor long term? So these sets, which are high force production, these sub-maximal back off sets, and I'm going to tell you how to do them here, they provide minimal fatigue, but you get a good dose of stimulus, and you also don't get any muscle damage, any joint pains and stuff like that, so that you are able to improve your technique, accumulate a lot of volume throughout the week, and you can train the main lifts multiple times because your volume isn't super hard. If you're doing a 5x5 at 80%, you can probably only do that lift once a week. If you're doing my recommendations, you can probably train the main lift 2 or 3 times a week. Then suddenly you're able to develop way more skill, become way more proficient, and get stronger. So for the back off work, I generally recommend 3 to 6 sets. I'd probably say 3 to 5 sets, to be honest. 3 to 6 reps at 60 to 75% for the majority of your volume, okay? So the bulk of your training volume, I would try and put in this range. Like I said, some work is going to be above and below this. So for example, some of my squat volume is around 50% just because I respond well to that. You might want some of yours a little bit higher. Again, you're just going to need to experiment. Now, some pro tips for top set back off approach. The top sets, you should aim to add weight to that top set every single week, okay? You're going to need to kind of figure out how much weight you're able to add without overshooting your RPE targets. But over time, you'll generally get a good sense. So for me, I personally run 5-week training blocks. And in those blocks, on my squat and my deadlift, the primary squat and deadlift, I'm able to add 10 kilos for the first 3 weeks. And then those last 2 weeks, I'm able to add 15 kilos without the RPE target jumping up, okay? So I go 10, 10, 10, 15, 15. For the bench press, I usually go something like 5, 5, 5, and then maybe 7.5, 7.5, or something like that. So for the top sets, try and add weight every single week. If you are not able to, the program is not working and something needs to be adjusted. Usually the back off work, the volumes, the intensities, or something like that, okay? But we want to aim to add weight weekly. The back off sets, and this is really important, these back off sets, just view them as stress. It does not matter what weight is on the bar. Like, it is literally completely meaningless whether you have 405 on the bar, 455, 500, 600, 700. It absolutely does not matter. These back off sets are just stress. Your body, so try and think of it as your body is just experiencing this as stress, not as weight. It's not like your body is like, oh, that was 405, this is 415. It just knows how stressful was that, how hard was it. So I always use this medicine analogy. So you go to a doctor with some kind of disease or medical condition. The doctor is going to treat you with a particular medicine, right? The way he will do it, he's going to start on the lowest dose of that medicine because he wants you to get the positive effects of improving your condition, but he doesn't want the negative effects of you getting any nasty side effects, right? So he gives you the lowest dose, assesses your symptoms, and then he'll slowly push the dose up over time. Exactly the same with your training volume and your back off work. You want to find the minimum dose that gets you stronger without the negative side effects of fatigue, tiredness, joint aches and pains, muscle damage, stuff like that, right? So if you are able to get stronger with 315 on the bar for your volume work, don't just put more weight on the bar because you want to. You don't need to. So do your back off work with 315. Just keep doing it until you need to change. You need to change when the top sets aren't going up, when you're not able to put weight on the bar on the top sets, basically. Once that happens, then you can look at the back off sets. Maybe you need to add weight, reduce weight, but you can figure that out based on how you're feeling, okay? Now, another pro tip, in your program, if you want to get really, really strong long term, you basically just need to get the main lifts really skilled, the squat, bench, and deadlift. Your main purpose of your program should be just to get those really, really skilled. You need to be really good at them. The way you do that, in my opinion, is using a top set back off approach, where the top sets give us skill practice, back offs give us a nice dose of volume without fatigue. Then we can train the main lifts frequently. The rest of your program literally just needs to be focused on getting as jacked as possible. And I think my approach allows you to do that because you're not so fatigued. It gives you chance and kind of energy to really focus on your bodybuilding as well. Final pro tip I will give you, and this one is really important. On these back off sets, a lot of guys will say they're really easy, they're really light. Don't just go through the motions and be lazy with it. You need to focus on fast bar speed. You need to focus on moving the bar as fast as you can. Like I said, a 1 rep max is force production. Force is mass times acceleration. The acceleration component is very important. Some guys will go way too far and they'll go with a west side approach where they're doing speed work. It's kind of in the middle. It's like a balance between really heavy stuff and speed work. It's in the middle where it's heavy enough to produce adaptations, but not so heavy that you can't move the bar quickly. So focus on fast bar speed. Now, I have some examples for you here, so you can literally just steal these in your program. So this is a typical example of a top set back off approach that I would use on the main lifts and the secondaries. So let's say you're training 4 days a week and you're going to do these primary lifts on a Monday, just for example, and you're going to do the secondaries on a Thursday, okay, just as a random example. These are the primary lifts here, these are the secondary lifts, these are the top sets, and these are the back offs. So for the primary squat, we're going to be doing a top set of 2 reps at RPE 7, meaning you've got about 3 reps left in reserve. Then you're going to do 4 sets of 4 at 70% of your estimated 1 rep max. You get the estimated 1 rep max from this set. So you do this set, log it, and then you're going to need to use an online RPE calculator. My coaching spreadsheets have these built in. So if you want me to just do that for you, you can click the link in the description. For the bench press, we're doing a single RPE 7, then 4x5 at 75%. Deadlift, again, top double, and then we're doing a 3x4 at 65%. On the secondary lifts, you can see they are very similar. They are just a bit lighter, and you might even want to add a variation in here. So you might want this to be a pulse squat, this might be a feet up bench, and this might be a pulse deadlift, for example. Now, instead of doing a top double on the secondary squat, we're going to be doing a top set of 5, and it's, again, lower RPE as well, just to manage fatigue, manage stress. Then a 3x5 at 65%. Now, this is the main work. This is just some extra stimulus to drive up this primary lift, okay? That's why the volume is a bit lower. That's why the intensity is a bit lower. Secondary bench press, again, instead of a top single, we're doing a double RP 6, 3x5 at the same intensity. Secondary deadlift, top set of 4 instead of a top double, and then a 3x5 at 60%. You might wonder, why is this more volume? Just because this is slightly lower volume here, I want to make up a bit of volume at a lower intensity. So you can literally just plug this into your program if you want to have a go with this, and then adjust it according to how you respond. Now, here is an example of how to progress this block to block, okay? So, or week to week rather. So this is one training block made up of 5 weeks. This is the primary lift. So you can think of this as a squat, for example. This is the secondary lift. You can think of this as a pause squat, okay? Just to give you a bit of context. So for the primary lift, basically what we're going to do, this is week 1 of the training block. We are going to do a single at an RPE 5. That's very low intensity, meaning you've probably got, excuse me, about 5 reps left in reserve, okay? So you do a single, you're leaving about 5 reps in the tank. It's going to feel pretty easy. It should be. It's designed like that to allow us to build momentum. Then we're going to be doing 4 sets of 4 at 140 kilos, so 315 pounds. Then you will see, as we go through the weeks of this training block, this top set increases in intensity. So we go from an RPE 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're aiming to add weight to this every single week in line with this RPE target. So maybe here you might go 180 kilos or 405, 190, 200, 210, 220. And ideally, it lines up with this RPE target here. If it doesn't, something needs to change in the training program because you're not adapting at the rate at which we want you to. Now, you might notice the volume work just stayed at the same weight. And that's because, like I said earlier, this 140 kilos, it's working. If you're able to add weight to these top sets week to week, this is working. This is an appropriate dose of stress to get you strong. So you do not need to put more weight on the bar. A lot of guys will make the mistake where they'll go 140, 145, 150, 155, 160. Every week is just getting harder and harder. They're feeling more beat up. This top set is not going up. They can't add any weight to the bar, and then they need to deload by week 4. Instead, just keep it the same. If you find that you're really fresh, well recovered, and these top sets are feeling a bit heavy, then you can add a bit of weight to these back off sets. Now, the secondary lift is exactly the same. You will just notice the intensity is lower, and the ramp at which we increase the workload is also slower. So you start at a set of 4 RPE 5, which is much lower intensity than this. And then you'll notice the RPE goes up a little bit more slowly. So it goes from a 5 to a 6, then a 6.5, 7, 7.5. So we're making like more incremental jumps. The back off work, again, it's lighter because we don't need as much stress. It's a little bit lower volume, very slightly. And again, it just stays static, exactly the same as the primary lift. If you find that this is not working and you feel really fresh and well recovered, just add a little bit of weight to these. So let's say, for example, here you do 180 kilos on this top set, here 190, then suddenly 200 feels really, really heavy. Again, 200 feels really, really heavy, but you feel really fresh, you feel really well recovered and ready to go. Then you can think about adding 5 kilos to this, and then adaptations will start happening again and you will start getting stronger. So if you have watched this video and you need a bit more help, you're a little bit confused, top link in the description, you can book a call with me. Very, very simple. We hop on a call, we review your current training program together, see what's going wrong, what needs improvement. I will map out a plan with you. I will tell you exactly what I'll do for you, what adjustments I'll make to the program. I will then walk you through my coaching plan, explain everything for you, the individualized programming, the nutrition coaching, the community, the mentorship from myself, everything like that, and then get you on board, get you as strong as possible, and save you from having to like do all this research and go read and watch all these YouTube videos and stuff. I'll literally just do it for you, hold your hand, and just get you really strong. So thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope that it helps you to improve your programming and your strength training. Any questions and comments, stuff like that, post them in the comment section down below. Till next time, I'll catch you in the next video.